Hi, guys, and welcome to this wonderful podcast. And today we have a really interesting guest with us who's going to share about his public speaking journey and all his struggles, all the mindset he built. So, over to you, Kapil. Why don't you start with a quick introduction?
Hi Sumit, thanks for having me on the podcast today. My name is Kapil. I'm working at Oracle as a product manager. My journey has been, the educational journey has been in between tech and commerce. Pretty much all the commerce courses, but I had some sort of tech mingled with the courses. And I did my graduation from Indore, then moved to Bangalore because I wanted to get outside of the comfort zone that I've built for myself. And right from the MBA journey, doing the resume optimization and LinkedIn building for myself, and then I started extending it for the larger audience out there, helping people build their resumes on LinkedIn. And I've been also conducting a few workshops for colleges and some personal projects on my own.
Interesting. So, was it always like this when you began? Were you also confident when you started your workshops, or how did it feel, especially just getting started? What did your first workshop look like?
Well, instead of workshop, let's talk about the college experiences that I had, because that's the beginning of everything. So I've always been this person who would raise his hand without knowing what's going to come next or what the future beholds. So I'm all in for the opportunities, but gradually I figured out that public speaking needs a little bit of practice. It also requires you to be not an expert maybe, but a little well versed with what you're speaking about, right? So in college it used to be competitions like marketing pitch or a startup pitch. Those were the two competitions that I did in graduation days, and it went miserable for me.
What happened?
So one thing is I wasn't aware of the topic completely. So if you're selling something on stage, you have to know the ins and out of the product really well. And I don't think I was at that point very well versed with it.
Okay, what was this product that you were trying to sell?
It was some version of OnePlus, I think OnePlus 5 or 6, I think OnePlus 6. Okay. And I was a smartphone geek back then, but I wasn't like I know everything. I don't know which Snapdragon version is the best. I don't know which GPU is the best. I don't know which phone is the one for gaming, even at that point of time or even today.
Honestly, I also don't know much about phones, but so when you were doing this pitch, right? So do you really think people, especially your audience, was well versed with the technicals, or were they maybe looking for something more, like maybe selling the emotion or the confidence that you projected while your pitch? How did that go?
Did I know the answer back then? No. But now I know that sales is more about selling emotions than selling the functionalities. But again, it has to be a story which connects well both the functional aspect and the emotional aspect of the feelings of your audience.
That is true.
You have to trigger the emotions, but again, it's by telling a story around the functions, right? Like it has a camera which does this, that, and you can brag about the pictures that come out of it. So even though I'm triggering your emotions, but I'm still talking about my feature.
That makes sense. I think Apple does this really well, right?
Yeah. Pretty much every smartphone brand out there tries to do it, but yeah, there's a different degree of how much they are able to achieve.
That is true. And I think in our earlier conversations, you were saying that you had gone for a pitch, and then what happened was your partner blacked out.
Right.
It
was the same competition.
So how did you finish the pitch? Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So like I said, I wasn't well versed with the product in the first place.
Yeah.
As a result, what happens to me, and it might be different for everyone, my hands get very sweaty. My legs start shivering. The same thing was happening, and it was quite evident, I think. But the only thing is, if you're standing there, the bare minimum that you can do in a competition is finish it off.
True.
So I had written the script by myself. So So I knew what the script is, even though I don't know the product fully. So I just had it almost like running in front of me imaginarily, and I just did that script and ran off from the stage.
I mean, definitely that must have been really harsh, right? So once you went from there, what gave you the courage to even continue public speaking? Because obviously once you have that traumatic experience, like I can't even imagine if my partner blacks out what I would do. So what encouraged you to even keep going?
See, I think the encouragement was more external than internal for me. Like I said in my introduction, I am the one who will just keep raising his hand without knowing what's coming next, right? So, and I think the MBA was one place which helped a lot in this journey, because there's every other week there's one presentation that you have to give, right?
Yeah.
And inevitably there's at least 40 to 50 people sitting in front of you. So that feeling of a room where people are hearing to you, whether they are active or inactive or whatever they are doing, they are some kind of audience, right? So the MBA journey helped a lot. And even in MBA journey, I think I went through the phases of being terrible at some things but being good at the other things. And then I think the mindset shift started from there.
Okay. What sort of mindset shift?
Okay. So one thing that I realized in the graduation days, this was something which a professor of mine told me, that graduation is like a playground for most people.
Interesting.
A lot of graduate students or undergrad students have this mentality that we'll do fun here, enjoy our college life, then maybe find a job or not find a job, and then anyways we have to go and do an MBA, right? So MBA is that place where you are all serious because you have just 2 years to finalize all your studies and get into some good company and find a job, right? So I think the same thing followed with me. Even though I was doing some part-time work before MBA, the real mindset shift, like I'm talking about, the skill building part or investing time in learning new skills like Excel, Power BI or whatever, right? It started happening at that point of time. And I think towards the end, I really focused on 2 things, which is one, public speaking, of course, and I also worked on how do I improve my presentations visually.
Okay. Yeah. Then I want to ask you this. What is the best presentation you've ever done and what is the worst according to you?
That's a good question. Throws me back to again the college days. I wouldn't call it a presentation. It was more like an explanation or a classroom session. It was for middle school kids. And the topic was personal finance.
Personal finance?
Yeah.
Okay. For middle schoolers?
Yes, for middle schoolers.
People who don't have a bank account were learning about personal finance.
Exactly.
Okay.
And these are students who don't even have a lot of money at their home. So these are underprivileged children at a government school somewhere in Bangalore.
Okay.
But I think what worked is I designed the whole presentation and the script of what we were going to say. We were like a group of 20 volunteers with 5 students each. And even though we had a presentation, it was more about the explanation and the conversation that was going through.
Yeah.
So one thing that worked over there was metaphors.
Okay.
Like if you're talking about inflation, for example, you can show them a chocolate which comes at 40 rupees, the Dairy Milk, right? That same Dairy Milk, if you were born in 2001 or somewhere around that time, it used to be 5 rupees.
I mean, that is true.
The difference between the price and then the comparison between the amount of chocolate that you're getting, the size of chocolate you're getting.
Okay.
That was probably the best one because I enjoyed it a lot, irrespective of what was the topic and what was the audience. And the worst one was probably about an entrepreneur that you look at as a great leader.
Okay.
Why was that worse? one of the assignments in MBA, the topic was leadership. So we had to find an entrepreneur who is a very good leader. Okay. I think the best way to figure it out would have been a podcast with the leader himself, so that you really understand what's their leadership style, right? But where I fell short was I didn't really understood the person. I didn't really look after him as an idol for myself.
Okay.
I just made the assignment for the sake of making it, and then
so like you half-assed
it didn't feel really good to me. I think as a speaker, it's more about what feels good to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Then, I mean, if you think of from the audience's perspective, probably the failure which we were talking about, the sales pitch competition, probably that would have been a bigger failure, but it didn't feel as bad as this.
I mean, if you don't believe in the topic, right, it becomes very hard to make others believe.
Correct.
And that does happen. I think once I was doing this college presentation and it was very cluttered. I mean, I didn't design the PPT. I didn't do any of that. I was just asked, hey, can you speak? This is your part. I think I was sick before that. So they just gave me the part. I think it was taxes or something. I barely even remember what I said. And I looked back at that presentation and I was like, I did that. No way I did such a bad job. So I think it's also about believing in the topic, knowing the topic, and metaphors. Like, definitely, I'm really glad you raised this, because a lot of people, especially say in a technical background, they think that the more specific I am with the topic, like suppose I have this glass over here, a technical person will say, this glass is the best glass we imported from China, whatever, etc. This microwave, nobody cares. Right. If I say that imagine sipping a cup of chai while it's raining with this cup, that is what is something that creates that emotion. And a lot of technical people don't understand that. Yeah. So you are from a technical background. So if you had to take complex technical terms and you had to make it into metaphors, do you have like a process for that, or what method do you use?
That's a good question. I think it has to start from understanding your audience, because that really tells you what metaphors you want to use. Okay. Because for middle school kids, probably the best example to pick up was chocolates.
Yeah.
And I actually took the chocolates to give it to them so that they can connect with it really well. At least I know for sure that they will remember inflation for a very long time.
That is true.
Right. So that's that. And I think if you have an audience who you are not very familiar with, or you're facing any difficulty in empathizing with them, probably ChatGPT can help you there.
Okay, so using ChatGPT to come up with metaphors. So
just tell ChatGPT that you are working as this person for X number of years. What are the typical concepts or terms that they come across in their daily life, and how do I connect this specific topic with that particular world of this?
This is quite interesting, right? Because a lot of people are very hesitant to use AI for their PPTs. In fact, I think they use it in the wrong sense, because I've had clients, you won't believe this, once I'd given a client a project that, hey, you have to make this PowerPoint presentation. He went to an AI website, typed in the topic, generated a presentation. It was awful. But I think using ChatGPT to maybe find metaphors or maybe structure the presentation, that is more useful. So, because I think PPT should be handled. What are your thoughts on that? Because you said that you have also worked on a lot of PPT design, right? Right. So tell me what makes a good PPT. Tell me what makes it authentic according to you. I want to know all of that.
Yeah. Okay. I think I'll give you versions of presentations. Okay.
Sure.
The first version would be take a book or an online article, copy paste the whole thing. That's the first version.
Oh.
Okay. The second version is you still have a white background, but you convert the paragraph into bullet points.
Okay.
The third version is probably, let's say in the second version you had 8 or 9 bullet points. You remove 6 of them and keep only the 3 which are the biggest takeaways.
Okay.
For that particular slide. The next version is, let's say you are presenting a process which has 5 steps in it.
Yeah.
The last version should be like, every single slide has one highlight.
Has one highlight. So again,
Let's
one
say if
slide, one idea, right?
yeah, like let's say if we are talking about the process of hiring someone for an organization. Okay, the first step is recruitment, where you're actually advertising that your company is hiring for this role and you want people to apply. Right? Let's say you're giving a class and you're just explaining this entire process.
Yeah.
So first would be recruitment. You pick an icon which represents recruitment. Write recruitment below that. Have 1 or 2 pointers and design those pointers in such a way that it looks like a button.
Like a button. Oh, interesting.
So put a shape, and in that shape you can change the bevel. I think it's called bevel in PowerPoint.
Okay.
So that makes it look like a button that you can press. Because people are used to of those things in their smartphones, right? So it looks like a button over there. 1 or 2 buttons, maybe even 3-4 buttons, depending on how complex is your topic. Just the headings of it, and you are the one explaining those things. Then use a feature called as morph. Okay. Morph will be like, it will take your recruitment, and then you have another emoji or a graphic which is for the next step.
Yeah.
Probably selection or whatever is the next step. Now your first one was in color and the second one was grayscale.
Okay.
When you do morph, the grayscale turns to colored for the next step. So it's like it
so the attention basically is what you're speaking, right? Because you're using this morph transition. It's a transition?
Yeah.
Okay. So to shift the attention.
Yes.
Makes sense.
And let's say you have 5 things to cover, right?
Yeah.
If you fill out one slide with 5 of the things, the audience doesn't know where to focus.
That's fair.
So keep their focus on one single thing, share the ideas, move it across, let the ideas keep changing. And at the end of it, you can connect it all together.
That is a very smart way, because I think playing with the idea of, say, contrast or these colors, a lot of people ignore colors, right? I've seen the ugliest PPTs, even if the information is good, the colors don't have enough contrast, or maybe the focus is diverted a lot.
Yeah.
So I think that is very important. One thing I love to use, especially to make these illustrations, is napkin.ai, where you can just feed in the... Sorry?
That's an amazing tool.
Yeah, it is. You just feed in the information. It creates so many, I think thousands and thousands of infographics. Okay. Now I want to ask you, what are 3 major mindset shifts you would recommend a new speaker? Because I'm sure you have gone through the whole speaker journey. So have I. But obviously, since you're the guest here, you're on the spotlight. So you tell me, what are 3 mindset shifts?
I think the first one has to be, your first draft will always be messy.
Okay.
Even your 10th draft, your 15th draft can be messy. It all depends on the number of times you're speaking on a stage, right? Let's say if you're a teacher in a school or in a college, you're every day in front of an audience. So it is supposed to improve, right?
Yeah.
I think the 3 ideas come from what I've said right now only. You have to try, you have to keep repeating it, and the more you do, the more you will learn.
Okay. So it's all about that repetition. That's
It's
the
all
main
about
thing.
repetition. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think even the most seasoned speakers do mistakes. Right?
That is true. Yeah.
I mean, there's one thing that you should not use any kind of fillers. But if you see the most popular TEDx talk ever, I don't remember the name of the person, but maybe we can check it out later.
We'll drop the link below.
Even the same person uses filler.
Okay.
But it's like, let's say I use a filler. Am I restricting all my thoughts on that filler, or am I moving ahead? That's what makes a very big difference.
That is true. Not obsessing over those mistakes.
Yeah. And sometimes finding ways to turn that mistake into an opportunity.
Yeah. That is something even I love doing. Like suppose sometimes maybe if I go blank, because that happens to us sometimes, I shoot a question at the audience so that I'm able to recover from there. So I think the 3 biggest mindset takeaways would be repeat, Your first drafts will be terrible. It's completely okay. And definitely the most important, always focus on recovering from your mistakes than obsessing.
Yeah.
Correct? It's wonderful.
That reminds me, especially the freezing part. I was a part of Toastmasters, and in the second speech that I did over there, I attempted some kind of stand-up speech.
Okay.
It was almost like I did some tweaks into the real story because I couldn't afford to give them the real story.
Okay. Why is that?
Yeah.
Why couldn't you give the real story?
I mean, the real story had more characters. It would have been a little boring to explain about every character, to give context about each character.
Okay.
So I made it more about myself and another character which was there in the story. And it went really well. So all Toastmaster speeches are supposed to be in between 5 and 7 minutes. I planned for the entire 7 minutes. It went well for about 4.5 minutes.
Okay.
But then there was one point where I was not really confident even while practicing it. And for some reason my mind was stuck in that area.
Okay.
It's like I have practiced the 4.5-5 minutes really well, but there's this one point that I'm really conscious about. And eventually I stuck there.
What was that point, if you don't mind asking?
I won't give you the entire story, but I'll tell you what's happening, okay?
That's fine.
It's a story of an annual function.
Okay.
In class 10th. And one of my friends did some mischief with a teacher's vehicle. Okay. And then the story is about how we were made to write apology letter on the coldest morning of December. And then we being called into the principal's office and whatever happened inside the principal's office and what we learned from there.
Interesting.
Okay? The part where principal called us, I made it very dramatic, and probably I didn't practice the drama part of it really well, and that's where I stuck.
Okay.
So in my head I was like, what comes next? When I'm standing in front of the audience, and I think, I don't know whether I did it really well, but I felt that I did it well till that point, till 4.5-5 minutes, because the audience was staring right into my eyes, and they were like, we want more. So I really like these moments where your audience says something through their eyes.
That is true. That impact you're making.
Whether sometimes it reflects in their eyes that there is a shift from A to B, and they really understand what you wanted to convey. Right. And I just recovered from that spot. I think I froze again for 5 seconds after that.
Okay.
Somehow recovered from that as well, and eventually I won the best speech.
Oh wow! Congratulations for that.
Thanks.
I think when it comes to storytelling, right, one thing I absolutely love doing, I'm a movie buff. I see a lot of movies. So I just imagine the story like a movie. So whatever is going on in my head as a mental picture, I just describe it. So that way you don't get stuck, right? Suppose if I was talking about the whole principal office thing, I would just get into, it was a red car, it was a BMW, and this guy comes, he starts scratching on it, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then in that journey, you kind of remember, oh, yeah, this happens like, but it was a real thing, right?
Yeah. I think there are a little too many constraints in a Toastmaster setting. Because one thing is, you're always conscious about what time it is. So even though there is a person sitting there who is supposed to give you the time, but he or she will give you the time at 5 minutes, 6 minutes and 7 minutes. Till you reach 5 minutes, you're not sure, or you don't know how much you have covered, right? Until and unless you eventually really have a time clock in front of you, which adds more pressure to me as a speaker, right? So there's timing. Then, like I said, I added a lot of drama to it, right? So in my head, I was like, I have to remember every single point of the drama as well. When to clap, when to fall down, when to really do that action or the gesture of doing the mischief itself.
Yeah.
Right? Or what my friend said, what I replied back to him. And like I said, I changed it a little bit. So I'm diverting from the real story. Right? it probably needed more practice on my part, and I was maybe a little hurried to finish the number of speeches.
Okay.
That's where I think I went wrong.
I mean, sometimes it's not also about practice, right? Sometimes it's also about not obsessing over, am I exactly sticking to the script? Because especially when it comes to comedy, the best sort of presentations are improvised. At least a little bit, they're improvised.
Right.
So I think what happened was you were first pressurized by the time, that am I even sticking to the time? Then the second thing is when you said that the audience was listening. So instead of you thinking about your experience, you went into the audience's head, right? You were like, okay, they're paying attention, lot of pressure on me. What do? I need to deliver. And that really forces you to freeze up. Because why do we freeze? We never freeze in conversations. But we freeze up during presentations because we take in the world's pressure. So what are your thoughts on that? Has that happened to you?
No, I think till 4.5, 5 minutes mark, it didn't affect me that much.
Okay.
Because till that point, I was like, yeah, this is my story, this is my story, this is my story. And there was this point where I kept failing even in the practice part.
Okay.
And even though I had corrected it towards the end, my mind was still there. At this point, something happens to me. It's probably a deeper layer which we may be not able to uncover in this conversation, but if I reflect back on those videos, thankfully I still have that YouTube video. If I go back, probably I can realize what happened to me at that particular moment.
Okay, that makes sense. And I think personally I feel that Toastmasters is way too rigid with their feedback, because I've heard that they grade people and then they have these strict time rules to adhere to. So what happens, right? Public speaking is an art. But when you try to really constrain it so much, the speaker's energy, the speaker's aura, the authenticity goes for a toss. So that's the reason I started Speak with Sumit as a better alternative to Toastmasters. And that is what I believe. I don't know if you had a good experience over there or not, but I would say the majority of people I have talked to, they don't get the proper guidance, because the branch also matters, right? So did you get a good branch, or your branch wasn't that good?
I think the club which I was a part of is one of the best in Bengaluru. It's not just me saying, it's an overall belief in the community, because I also attended a few events of the district in particular. So district has about 100 plus clubs. Okay. So the club was good. The club leadership was really good. In fact, there are people who are in this journey for more than 10 years. And they are not just doing Toastmasters, they are good at the things that they do at their work also. So some are project managers. One guy was an aviation engineer.
Ooh, that's
There's
fancy.
one person who is a genetic counselor.
I don't even know what that is. What is a genetic counselor?
Genetic counselor is someone who advises people. Let's say you have a hereditary disease.
Yeah.
Okay. Which you don't want to be transferred to your offspring.
Okay.
So her job is to advise you how to, avoid that transference.
Whoa, I didn't even know that was possible.
I don't know how it's possible, to what degree it is possible, but to some extent, yes.
Makes sense. Okay. And I think the final thought that I would want to put up over here, since you're really strong on LinkedIn, right? So I want you to tell me some interesting tips according to your own experience with networking. Because how did a boy from Indore come to Bangalore, build a strong network, start working with people? How did you do all that?
I think there is a little bit of disconnect between the two questions in your question.
Okay.
Me coming to Bangalore was, it was like, it was more like a choice for me. I really wanted to get out of Indore. That's why I got out of Indore anyways. I got into an MBA college, completed my education, and then got a campus placement. Okay. So it's more like a linear journey instead of
got that, yeah.
Rather than doing all the networking thing at that point of time, I didn't do anything at all. But the interesting part is, during MBA, I wasn't able to find any conventional internship. I applied for about 5 or 6 companies, the good ones, and I probably didn't get any interview as such.
Okay.
I got one internship which was not good.
Not good. Okay. Like the pay wasn't good or the work hours were toxic? What was it like?
No, I would just say it wasn't good. I don't want to go into the details of it.
Okay, fine, sure. Let's keep
It
that
was
confidential.
not good to the extent of me ignoring it in my resume for final placements.
Oh, wow. That is
So
like
there's
not
that.
good, not good.
Yeah. Okay. There's different layers of networking. The one that I did is the physical one, which you would probably do in the real world out there. I have a person who has been associated with my family for about 15, 20, 25 years. I don't know how many number of years. He is a mutual fund advisor. And I was doing an MBA in finance. So I was at home during the internship period. The person came over to my house. Yeah, that's a yearly ritual for him to give out some gifts of sorts. He was over, he asked me, what are you doing? And I said, I'm searching for an internship. And he took my interview in that place itself.
Wow.
He said, what is finance? I gave him the answer. He said, how long have you been investing in mutual funds? Probably I was 6 months in at that point of time, I told him. And he said, I know someone, you go meet him and he'll probably give you an internship.
Okay.
I went there 2 questions in and I got an internship.
Wow. So it's all about knowing the right people.
It's all about that, yeah. And I think in the current situation, since the job market is as bad as it is right now, you need to network with a lot of people.
Okay. But how did you do it, right? How did you go from zero networking to a really good level, some might say, because you conducted a LinkedIn workshop. I mean, you've conducted multiple workshops and really, I'm pretty sure you know a lot of interesting people too, right? Even we met through networking. Right. So how did that happen? Just tell me your secret for networking.
Okay. I already gave you a physical life example.
Yeah.
I'll give you another example from a virtual or an online situation. When I joined as a product manager, I wasn't really sure whether I belonged there. Okay. So I had an imposter syndrome of sorts. At that point of time, I was like, I either have to learn very fast or probably I'll get fired.
Ooh, that must be scary.
It wasn't that scary. It was more of me overthinking it. Okay? Nobody expects a fresher to be perfect in anything, especially in my case, because I didn't really have an eye on product management. It was like the company wanted me.
Okay.
So even though I was thinking about it, there was no angle of being fired at least at that point of time. Right? So I watched a lot of YouTube videos. I also did a few courses on Coursera to get better at it. But the other aspect of it was learning from people, because courses are limited to a particular extent, right? They'll hardly ever give you any real life problem statements and tell you how people solved it.
Yeah.
So the other aspect of it was connecting with people to understand how they did what they did. And let's say if someone pivoted from other role to product management, I wanted to learn from them that how did they do it and why did they do it. Right?
Okay.
So, and one thing about product managers is we are very busy people, typically. Right? So very less people use LinkedIn actively. Now, one challenge is you have to find someone who's active. How you do that is search and everything is very commonly known and it's all out there in the public domain, so I'm not touching on that. You search for someone, you filter on where they are working, etc. I don't know whether there's an years of experience filter, but if there's one, you can use that. The next thing is to figure out whether they are active. You have to look at their post.
Yeah.
When was it that they last posted, or when was it that they last reacted on someone's profile? If it is 1 month before, it's still okay. If it is 2 months back, 3 months back, it's
Then
probably
that's
going
time,
to be, cricket sounds out there for you. It's not like they're ghosting you, it's like they are not using LinkedIn at all.
That's fair, yeah.
So I would probably stay away from them. Or if it is someone who is very, very interesting for you, but they are not using LinkedIn, try searching them on Instagram.
On Instagram. Okay.
So be at the platform where they are available, or where they are more likely to notice you.
Okay.
Right? The next step, let's say you have found someone who is active on LinkedIn. The next step is you scroll through their entire profile.
Okay. Their entire profile.
Yeah.
All right.
Maybe some people only look at the profile picture, the banner and the headline. I would scroll all the way till their recommendation sections.
Wow. Even the about section, recommendation feature. Okay.
Yeah. So if we zoom out of it, my way of doing it is I don't want to send any cold DMs to anyone.
Yeah.
It's more like a warm outreach where you are really paying attention to what someone has done over the years. Pick out things that resonate with you the most. If let's say they have studied at the same college, that's the most important talking point for you, because there's always one professor who everyone hates, right?
Yeah.
That could be the best. That could be the best emotional trigger for that person. The next one could be where they have worked.
Yeah.
No one really, appreciates the work we do on a regular basis. Probably people at home understand what we do, but you wouldn't really hear it from the outside world that you're doing a good job.
Yeah, but
a lot of people
coming
don't
up
hear.
to a stranger and saying that you're doing a good job, like, doesn't that become awkward? Because obviously you don't know them, so how can you even maybe say that? They might take it the wrong way, don't you think?
Usually people don't take it in the wrong way.
Okay.
It's not like you're just saying you're doing a good job. It's like you're saying, why is your profile interesting?
That makes sense.
Like for me, if someone is already working on things like let's just take an example of improving UPI in some way.
Okay.
Maybe making it faster. Or let's say in future someone discovers that we don't really need to scan the QR code, there's a better way of doing it. That's a crazy solution if someone implements it, right?
Yeah.
Something even faster than the QR code, that's like even less than milliseconds. Right? So everyone knows that it's a big thing.
Basically.
Yeah. And then always have the approach of learning from their experience more than asking for a favor in the first conversation itself.
Fair.
So if you're trying to connect with them, if you're sending them a connection note, don't tell them that I'm looking for a referral. Look at a conversation first. Look at a DM response from them and say things which are likely to make them respond.
Like, could you give me some examples for that?
That's appreciation. Talk about them.
Talk about them. Make it about them. That's where the research comes in, right? Looking at the about section features. Fair.
Yeah. It's rare to find people who put that effort into optimizing their profile.
Yeah.
Because like I said, everyone is busy, right? Yeah, just not that people who are product managers, but everyone is tech is like super busy these days.
Exactly.
So if someone is putting efforts, that's like a gold mine for you.
So
Take things from there and ask them.
So in summary, basically for networking, there are 3 levels. Firstly, physical networking is the best, right? Because that's where the true connection is. If you are doing it via LinkedIn, first check if they're active, then go on to Instagram, maybe you might find them there. And then my next question is that suppose you have that DM conversation, all of that, how do you take it to the next level, that being in their inner circle level, right? Because that is very important. A lot of people fail over there. Even if they have a good DM conversation, coming to the next level is where they get stuck. So what are your thoughts on that?
Okay. That's again an interesting question. Okay. I think the more you speak with people, I mean, not a wider audience, but a single person. Let's say you have had one conversation with the person. You would ideally want to close that conversation on something that you can improve on. So essentially you're asking them for advice that I'm currently doing this. What should I do next? Right? And then you do that next part and tell that person that your advice was really interesting. I have actually did some research on that and learned that skill or did whatever you suggested. Would you be interested on a call where we can review it together?
Wow. This is a really good approach.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I think even during that conversation itself, you can ask them to, give you a time slot for 2 months later, where you can speak again.
Yeah. And
in between the conversation, be it on LinkedIn or any online platform or even an external world for that matter, you should be able to observe the person in order to understand whether they are really interested in your conversation or not. It's like trial and error. So some people may not be genuinely interested in the conversation. So if you're able to understand that, don't push them to the extent of them running away.
Definitely, it's all about attracting the right people, and some people may not come on board. But yeah, this advice is definitely interesting, where you ask them for advice and you actually do the thing, because a lot of people ask for advice, never implement. So once you do the thing, get back to them, ask them for a review.
Yeah.
So thank you for your valuable insights, first of all, Kapil. I think it's been a really great conversation. And we've learned a lot of things in this one podcast. Networking, then we touched on mindset, we touched on what makes a good PPT. Really insightful. So how many years have you been doing public speaking for?
If I go all the way to the college days or even further back to the school days, it's been about 8 years now.
8 years.
More than 8 years. But if you talk about serious public speaking, I think it's only been 2 years. Started somewhere in 2023 and it's going on.
That's good, because a lot of people, they overestimate, right? They think that they need to really dedicate a decade to even get good at public speaking, but you're living proof that you can do it in 2 years, which is a very interesting takeaway. Okay, so with this, we can wrap up today's podcast, and really thank you for attending. And yeah, if the audience is interested, I will drop Kapil's LinkedIn in the description, as well as the YouTube video he was referring to, the TEDx video. So you guys can check it out. And for more interesting conversations, definitely subscribe to the channel.